This is Randall Fields, Executive Administrator of the Impact Developmental Football League. You are listening to the Alternative Football News Network on AFNtalk.com.
Day of the XFL Football League, baby. This is the answer to the NFL offseason. Holy shit, Houston drops back, and quarterback fires a damn missile down there, son, and he catches that son of a This is NFL-type play right here. XFL, I did not expect this kind of play from the XFL. Holy shit. They got some quarterbacks in this league. Look at that damn catch. He goes up there and says, I got the groceries, son. I'm going to the house.
Football first.
You're listening to XFL Now on the Alternative Football News Network.
Week 1 is in the bags, and we are ready here on XFL Now to talk about the debut after, for me, 2 years of waiting. For some of the guys here, a year, maybe more. I don't know. We've been doing this for quite a while now. AFNN, AFN Talk, AFN Live on Sunday nights at 8 o'clock. Listen to that show, Indoor Arena, and anything but the NFL. We'll talk about any alternative style of football but the NFL, and, of course, we do not talk soccer here, okay? That F-U-T, or F, however they spell that word, I can't even, it drives me crazy they call that football. I swear to God sometimes. Anyway, week 1 is over. I'm here. I've got Michael Washington, Weeks MW Squared. Kevin Drake, Katie. Katie was on the field in Houston this week. We're going to talk to him. We got something special coming up a little bit later on with RJ Ciancio. And, of course, as always, the mean one himself, the one who is, I don't know what you'd call the man, Mark Angst. How you doing, Mark?
I'm doing good, Harry. How are you doing?
I'm excited, man. The XFL season kicked off. The ratings are in. We got scores to give away, man. You know what? Let's start this off right here. Mark, we had one week in XFL football.
One heck of a week. It was a great week.
Well, it all started off with the DC Defenders, right? Right? Michael, you know Michael
started off better with Seattle than DC, actually, but yeah.
Well, it ended up with DC.
You're right.
It ended up with DC.
Look at end zone. It is caught. Touchdown. Austin Prohl. And it's the first touchdown of this new XFL.
That was it. That was it. Austin Kroll ran it in for the first touchdown of the XFL. Michael, how did you feel about that moment? Because I know DC's your team. How did you feel?
Well, my team didn't score the first touchdown in the XFL. They scored the first points of the XFL. But the first touchdown went to Seattle with the Austin Prohl reception there from Brandon Silvers. Honestly, as a fan of DC, as a fan of the XFL, I was just happy to see that it wasn't going to be, a field goal kicking game. I was happy to see Brandon Silvers kind of, showcase what he's about and let him on a drive. I wasn't worried. I knew DC was going to come back, and they did. So I can't complain. I'm okay with it. We scored the first points of the XFL. I'll take that. I don't care if it was a field goal. I'll take that. It's all right.
Not only that, but DC brought out a dominant defense, and that is something to be said because we all know that the defensive part of this game is going to be very, very important with some of the rule changes that have been put in play, like the 1 foot in bounds rule. So much riding on the D when it comes to special teams and defending that goal line when it comes time to make an extra point. That DC shined this week on defense. And so did the ratings for the game. The first ever game on ABC. Man, that thing drew 335 million viewers. And the attendance there, I believe they were at Audi Field, correct? Audi Field?
Audi Field. Yep. Audi Field.
Now, this is not a huge venue, but they still managed to pull in, and I think this is a highly respectable number for week one of a brand new football league. 17,163 total attendance. That's pretty damn good. What do you think?
Oh, yeah, it was fantastic. In the smaller stadium, led for, the crowd's noise was louder. You could hear it. You could hear it in the clip that we just listened to when Prohl scored the touchdown. The boos were thunderous. They were vocal. I think that originally the first half, they were very vocal about their team, and I think it's just because they've been so dreadful in DC for so long and other areas that I think that they're excited down there, man. So 17,000, over 17,000 showing up for a week one, season of a league that bombed the first time. Damn respectable. And we'll get into more numbers across the board, but the whole weekend, really.
Oh yeah, I agree with you, man. There was not, there were no games that weren't worth watching. It was the first time in, 5-6 years that I could actually sit through an entire day, even at that, 2 days in a row of professional football. Just can't do that with the NFL. Can't do that anymore. Let's go over down to Tampa Bay, where the Vipers, I guess you could say New York kind of defanged the Vipers a little bit. Yeah, they were defanged there. Let's check out a highlight from that game.
12:09 to play in the game. It's Murray on the fake pressure in his face, and he completes it. Truesdell fumbled the football, is picked up by New York with room to run. Summers working his way to the end zone. Hit near the goal line. Is he in? Touchdown!
Now, that was a interesting play watching it back. What's more interesting is that game drew a higher rating on Fox, and of course the audio is courtesy of ABC Sports and Fox Sports. Thank you very much. It drew a 3.39. So do you think that during the game, I'm going to talk to Mark about this one, do you think that during the first game that maybe a buzz started growing in social media, maybe Twitter, Facebook, people were telling their friends, you got to check this out, it's real football. And even at that, we are in New York. We are at MetLife Stadium, one of the biggest stadiums in the country. It's a huge facility. And no, I don't think Vince McMahon and the XFL thought they would sell it out. But they drew 17,815 to the venue for the debut of the New York Guardians and the XFL. And here's the other point. You guys know the tickets at that stadium are not cheap. Correct? Am I right, Mark? They are not cheap. These are prime seats you're paying for.
They are. They're probably one of the more expensive ones across the league. But I will say, I think possibility that you're right about the social media. That's probably one aspect for maybe the higher rating. Another aspect I believe also though was it was a Sunday. People are just used to sitting down on Sunday and watching games, so that's normal for Sunday at 2:00 in the afternoon. But then the third thing is you're also talking about New York, a big metropolitan area with a lot of people around it in Jersey and Pennsylvania and Connecticut and all these different states to draw extra in also. So I think it was just probably perfect by the XFL to put that game on Sunday in the middle of the day. And then to go to the stadium, to draw 17,000 for a New York team, and we all know New York loves their football, but they love their teams, the Jets and the Giants. But this showed another league has a chance to draw in big crowds. I was shocked that 17,000 actually showed up for New York. So that's that's a great sign, especially for that city.
I just want to mention.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
I just want to mention something real quick here because Mark brought up a good point with the New York game being on a Sunday afternoon, whereas the Defenders game was on a Saturday afternoon at 2 p.m. Now, neither of those time slots are prime time slots. And DC drew a 3.35 on ABC, where New York drew a 3.39 on Fox. The great thing about this is to showcase how strong of a performance this was. That game with DC was Saturday. That's a family day. That's usually a day of you doing things on, it's a first day off coming off a work week. You're generally scheduled to do things on that day. That showcases how strong and how much interest there really is in this XFL season.
I feel you there, man. I feel you there. We got 2 more games to talk about. We're going to take a quick minute here, and we'll be right back.
The Alternative Football News Network. History in the making.
They get it off. Over the middle. Nick Holly goes up, pulls it in. First and goal.
That was our first, I guess you'd call it an evening game. LA at Houston. And how bad did the Wildcats look, man? They Michael, you mentioned Wildcats, high school football name across the country, right?
Absolutely. That is straight up the most generic high school name ever.
And
hands down.
The play they put, I'm going to be honest with you, of all the teams in the XFL, they were the least impressive this week. Would you agree?
No, I don't agree.
You don't agree? Who was on?
No.
Who do you think?
I don't agree.
Who do you think?
Well, the thing with LA here is just real quick is we have to remember that their starting quarterback didn't play in this game. And they actually were only down by 1 point heading into halftime. So they were in that game for the first half. The second half, it completely derailed. But I would have to say that probably the most unimpressive team was the Vipers for me.
All right.
I think they moved the ball offensively, but that defense is definitely need to tighten up, and they need to eliminate mistakes, or otherwise it's going to be a very long season for Tampa Bay.
All right, so you're saying their defense down in Tampa Bay needs to be worked on. I'm pretty sure that the network here carrying the game, which was, let's see, that was the first late game. That would have been on Fox. Yeah, that would have been on Fox, man. Kevin, you were on the field.
I was.
And you were down on the field. You brought up an interesting point in our chat. You were also one of 17,206. I don't even know if you were count because you were on the field with your press credentials, but 17,206 at that stadium. What did it look like in person?
In person, you can't really grasp the concept of it on a camera because, yes, 17,000 for each game, but when you watch the games back, in the different stadiums, you hear a different sound. Game we'll talk about soon, the Battlehawks and Renegades, most of the time, even the crowd, when they were getting into it, they didn't really sound loud. But when you were when I was there in person at the Roughnecks Wildcats game, let's take it to one of the plays. It looked like it was busted coverage. Chad Knopf threw it to the end zone. His receiver was open, but then the safety came in and knocked him. Now, granted, all the fans thought that it was going to be a touchdown, so it got silent. No one was talking. But right when the receiver took that hit, you heard a deafening ooh everywhere. I jumped out of my shoes because I wasn't prepared to hear the loud ooh behind me because I had the fans towards me while I was watching the play. But then when I watch it back on the camera, it still sounds loud. But in person, watching these plays, especially that Nick Holly play where he caught it over the middle and basically triple coverage with a defender over him, PJ Walker put a dime on it. Everyone lost it. The atmosphere was electric. Everyone was going wild, especially when you got to a touchdown. Everyone was chanting, "Go 4-3, go 4-3." because we have the 1, 2, and 3-point conversions now in the XFL. Being there in person, it also, because I went back and watched the first touchdown from PJ Walker to Cam Phillips. In person, it looked slow. On camera, it looked fast. So it was a real interesting experience being on the field at that game.
Mark, I'm wondering, do you think Fox is happier with the 3.1 rating that they got for XFL as opposed to the ratings they've been getting for the $1 billion contract they signed for the SmackDown product?
Well, I mean, they have to be happy to pull in a 3.1, especially on a Saturday evening game. Like Michael said before, Saturday afternoon is time to do things with family, but Saturday evening is even more of that, I feel like, sometimes, where people want to go out to dinner, they're not home, but they sat down and watched the XFL. So if Fox can continue to pull that in these time slots, they'll be more than happy. And I'm sure SmackDown was the throw-in deal.
Maybe so. Michael, you did bring up the point about the Saturday afternoons. Do you think, now we all know that Sundays during the fall, it's a family ordeal when the NFL plays. People gather on their couches, cookouts during the early part of the year. Even later on during the heart of the, like if it's bad weather at places, you'll still get a cookout on a Sunday afternoon, and all your friends come over, your family come over, you sit down, you watch your favorite team, you watch them play, and you spend your Sunday afternoon doing that. Do you think that maybe the XFL will develop into that product like that, where it's like, oh, I'm going to have a whole bunch of buddies over, we're going to be sitting here watching a couple of XFL games tonight, chilling, enjoying ourselves? Is it going to become that type of football for those fans in the United States that want football throughout the year?
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, the biggest thing with the XFL and the biggest challenges that it's going to face is making sure that the quality of product continues to stay at a fairly high level. Even the teams that struggled, like Tampa Bay and LA, they still had flashes and moments where they were impressive enough to keep it in the game where you think, okay, maybe this could be it. And the rules changes, the point after attempts, the 1, 2, and 3, make things so every game still isn't out of it. Even a 31-19 victory with DC is still a 2-possession game. So the XFL is going to have to, the biggest challenge that they're going to face outside of the quality product is making sure that the turnovers on players. I'm expecting a majority of these players to come back to the XFL the following year because, like we saw with the AAF, a lot of these players caught on with NFL camps but didn't make rosters. So I think it's going to be similar to the XFL, but those top-notch players that do end up going back to the NFL, they're going to have to find the next man up mentality, at least until they can get exclusive contracts somewhere down the road. But at this particular moment, the XFL is definitely on the right path to becoming that weekend sit down with the family and watch your favorite team type of league.
Kevin, your thoughts on that topic?
The one thing that really gets me is, like, especially when Michael brought up, most of these players did not make it on NFL camps or even teams. But there were a few players from the AAF that did make it, one being Greg Ward Jr. He was with the Eagles, and he actually had, on the back half of the season, was a star in that Eagles offense. But now you come to the players that are playing in the XFL right now, especially like PJ Walker, the quarterback for Houston. He was a backup to Andrew Luck and Jacoby Brissett in Indianapolis. He showed on the field Saturday that he probably should have been the starter over Jacoby this past season. Just saying.
Whoa. Pump the brakes. I mean, PJ Walker.
I'm just saying.
I love PJ Walker's performance, Kevin, but that's a little bit of a hot take for sure on that one.
Well, the only reason is because when you see the level of quarterback play, especially Cardale Jones and PJ Walker, because let's be real, those two games were the highest scoring games, and the defenses stopped the other team from really scoring a point in the second half. But Cardale Jones and P.J. Walker went off. They showed that they are kind of the best in this league. Granted, Jordan Ta'amu of the Battlehawks, he did a great job too, but he was still in a low-scoring game. So my point is the QB play was good. No, even if we do have a couple of, like, low games this past weekend.
You're saying it was good. How about this one?
Nelson Deep, intercepted, and St. Louis is going to steal a road win. Their captain, Will Hill, with the interception to seal this one.
You're saying that the quarterbacks were good, right? That's what you're saying.
Yes.
Oh, okay. What about that one? Okay. What about Dallas?
Let me put it in perspective for you, Harry, because P.J. Walker, Cardell Jones, Jordan Ta'amu, Matt McGloin, even though he had a really bad performance, Aaron Murray and Quentin Flowers, other than Philip Nelson for the Renegades, almost every quarterback put up good numbers and had a good game. Even if we were comparing the fact that Aaron Murray and Quentin Flowers took different kind of reps, and at the end of the game it was Quentin Flowers to be the guy, the quarterback play was good. Whether we got interceptions or not, and Philip Nelson being playing the way he did, there was good quarterback play, especially between Cardell Jones, P.J. Walker, and Matt McGloin.
Okay, Michael, Dallas's quarterback situation, man.
I get frustrated when people use interceptions as a formula for a bad quarterback. And I get frustrated with that because generally those people that do that also praise a guy like Brett Favre and kind of forgets how many times he's put his team in harm's way. Now, interceptions clearly are not a good play. You'd never want an interception. Philip Nelson was making a play, trying to make a play for the Renegades. They were down by 6. They were still very well in the game. It was a rough start for Nelson. I will say that. It was not a good performance overall. He was out of sync with his receivers all game. And I don't know if that's the receiver's fault as much as it is Nelson's. I mean, it could just be a combination of not having enough time with these guys. His receivers continually did not make plays. And I'm not taking all the pressure off Nelson, but St. Louis Battlehawks defensive line were terrorizing Nelson most of the game. I think that they're actually leading the league right now in QB pressures. So it kind of plays into it when you watch a game, how these quarterbacks get rattled in that sense. I do have to say that Kevin mentioned Jordan Ta'amu as the number 3 quarterback that came off his list, off the top of his head there, or on his list, or whatever it is that he has. And I kind of chuckled because Ta'amu struggled for 3 quarters. If it wasn't for his running ability, the Battlehawks could have very easily lost that game. So we got to take in perspective that this level of play, and yes, it is a lower level. It's the reason that these guys are in the XFL and not the NFL, and doesn't take away from their talent at all. But it's easier to put up a 4-touchdown performance in the XFL with a guy like P.J. Walker than it would be at the NFL level. Not a knock on any of the talent in the XFL and not a knock on any of the quality of play that we saw. It's just that we have to keep that in perspective when we're talking about these guys, because like we saw with the AAF, a lot of guys put up numbers and played really, really well.
Yes, they did.
But did not make rosters.
You're correct there. Now, Mark, I want to know what you think about this situation. Do you think we should be praising the quarterbacks here, or should we be pointing out the flaws that they have so that the teams can grow? Because sometimes criticism helps the player to rise above the critics and become something special. Do you think we're going to see that with any of the quarterbacks that we would put at the bottom of a list right now in the XFL?
Well, the main guy you could put at the bottom at this point seems like Aaron Murray. And, I mean, we all thought he'd play better, but he didn't do too well in the AF either, so maybe this is what he is. And, yes, it's you have to do both. You have to say the good things about what they did good and the bad things about what they did bad. Philip Nelson's a really good point. When you look at his stat line, you would say, okay, he didn't look like he did too bad. But when you watch the game, it didn't look that great. But then you also have to take into account the fact that his wide receiver, Jazz Ferguson, in a late game scenario, completely never looked for the ball on a potential scoring play. So if he looks for the ball and catches it and scores a touchdown, do we talk about Philip Nelson a little differently? Probably, because they possibly win that game or at least look better on offense than what it ended up being.
Overall, ESPN, do you think they're happy with the number that they ended up drawing with a they drew 2.5 million viewers overall on the rating. The attendance at the venue, and you can't slight the folks down in Dallas, because 17,634 showed up in-house to watch their Renegades go down in defeat in their home opener. Mark, do you think that ESPN is going to be happy with that rating moving forward?
Probably, because one thing you have to remember with ESPN, it's more of a premium service than Fox, ABC are in comparison, because it's not always on your channel listing if you just kind of pay for the basic cable or some of these services. ESPN sometimes costs extra. So not everybody has ESPN, where Fox and ABC usually come along pretty easily. So for them, probably 2.5 million viewers on a Sunday afternoonish evening game, a game that wasn't that great to watch for the high scoring like the rest of them kind of were, or the big play or things like that. So, yeah, I think they'd actually be happy with that.
I also want to point out real quick with the 2.5 is that's live viewers, and I don't think that even goes through the ESPN app either, which is how I watch the game. I think those numbers come out Friday as far as DVR and streaming service numbers. So if they report on those, we'll be able to get a bigger number. But I agree, Mark, 2.5 I think is very respectable for ESPN because it's not a primetime national network.
All right. I feel you guys there. We're going to do something a little new here. We're going to be taking a quick break, but what we're going to do is there's a lot of players out there, as you know. AFNN is all about alternative football, and we do have a show on Sunday nights called AFN Live, hosted by yours truly, Michael Washington Weeks here. Mark is there, Kevin's there, and also you'll hear RJ Ciancio, because RJ is one of the most knowledgeable men that we know in the indoor and arena leagues, and he knows a lot about the players that are in the XFL that came from the indoor and arena league. So what we're going to do is we're going to give you a little insight into a player this week here on XFL Now at AFN Talk all over social media. If you want to get involved in the conversation, our phone number is 310-876-8064.
The Alternative Football News Network. History in the making.
Welcome to Beyond the Walls. This is a show where we go over some players who've made it out of the indoor and arena scene and into the XFL. Today I want to talk to you about St. Louis Battlehawk safety Joe Powell. Now, he's had a long and storied career that some of you may not be aware of. He only played 1 year in college back in 2013 for Global Institute of Technology. He got 53 tackles, 1.5 sacks, and an interception. Fast forward a couple years, 2015, he's in Lehigh Valley playing for the Steelhawks of the Professional Indoor Football League. He was the Defensive Rookie of the Year that year. 2016, goes to the Arena Football League playing for the Cleveland Gladiators. Has a good season. So good, he gets a couple tryouts for the next couple years. 2016, tryout with the Giants. 2017, tryouts with the Bills. In 2018, he gets picked up by the Atlanta Havoc of the American Arena League, who most recently went by Carolina Havoc and have now gone under. He did so well, the Baltimore Brigade called him up and said, yeah, you're joining the team now, and he became a second-team All-Arena player. In 2019, he went to Birmingham to play for the Iron in the AAF. After they folded, he went right back to Baltimore, playing for the Brigade, finishing out the season, and now he's on St. Louis as a Battlehawk.
There ain't nothing left to hear out. Been through it all, now I can hear the cheers loud. It's time for takeoff, take it to the top. We will not fall, the timing is now. We got to show you what we all about, without a doubt. We will not fall, what matters is now, so back it down. It's never allowed. Welcome to St. Louis. And take new height to top town. We take your flight. St. Louis. So high, and take new height to top town. We take your flight. Welcome to St. Louis. And take new height to top town. Your flight. So high, and take new height to top town. We take your flight.
Hey, we're back here on XFL Now. You know, the venues. We talked about the number of fans that came in. Let's talk about these venues because there's a few questions we have. I got a few questions for you guys. Let's talk about we got Globe Life Park there in Dallas. We've got Audi Field in DC. We've got TD-ECU Stadium down there in Houston. They're going to need that venue. We've got Dignity Health Sports Park in LA. That's a great name for a venue, isn't it? And of course, the classic MetLife Stadium there in New York City. CenturyLink Field up there in Seattle. Then we got the Dome at America Center. The Dome at America Center in St. Louis. And of course, who can forget Raymond James Stadium down there in Tampa Bay. Of the venues that are here, we haven't played at, where haven't we played? We have not played at Dignity Health Sports Park. We have not played at CenturyLink, the Dome, or RJS. What I'm curious to know, guys, is these stadiums, some of these are pretty big stadiums. Pretty big venues. What I'm wondering is, Michael, do you think that some of the venues may be too big for the XFL?
No, not at all. I mean, I think that you take a look at some of the venues that are the bigger venues. I think that what the XFL is trying to do is basically just say we're serious. We think that we can pack this stadium in these areas. We think that we can continue to grow. Because there was a thing with MetLife Stadium that supposedly they got outbid by Red Bull Arena, the MLS Stadium, and they decided to choose MetLife Stadium instead. I think it's Vince McMahon making a statement, but I also think that he sprinkled in some of the smaller venues as well, because I think it's giving a chance and opportunity to say, okay, 18,000 people, this is what it looks like. If this stadium wasn't so big, on TV, it wouldn't look so empty per se. Mm-hmm. So I think it's just kind of a good contrast in style, because you could see 17,163 at DC, which was actually the lowest attendance out of the 4 games. The stadium looked packed. Then I saw on social media and other people that watched the MetLife stadium game, they were like, this stadium looks empty. And it's like, when you take that 17,000 people and you really look at it in essence, they're saying, New York, we have a team, we can fill out this stadium. And that's what they're going to do. I mean, they already did it in Seattle with CenturyLink Field. Because of popular demand, they opened up more seating, and then that seating sold out in 6 hours. Right. So I think that it's Vince saying this is a statement by Vince and Oliver Luck and the XFL officials, in my opinion.
Now, Mark, do you think that because of who he is, being Vincent Kennedy McMahon, do you think that these venues that were bidding on the league being there, do you think that they have, there could be some ulterior motives with some of them to bring other properties that McMahon has his hand into those venues in a, let's say, super spectacular way, as with like a SummerSlam or a WrestleMania show, maybe? Some of these venues here are Royal Rumbles, you know what I'm saying? The big pay-per-views they do.
I mean, and maybe, but they do pretty well with those, I feel like, in general. Every year, WrestleMania is in a bigger and bigger stadium, I feel like. Mm-hmm. And I believe they just announced they're going to be in the biggest one they've ever had in the new stadium being built in LA for next year, which should draw the biggest crowd because it'll hold the biggest amount of people they've had so far. So it's a good possibility. I think it's just him saying, I think we have a good product, and I'm betting on my league that we can start to they're not going to ever probably sell out a MetLife and 80,000 fans. But if they ever get to the point where they're selling 30 to 40,000, that's a win for him and the league, and that's what he's looking for.
Never say never, Mark.
Yeah.
Never say never, Mark.
80. That's
not in the first 3 years.
Lot.
Not in the first 3 years, he couldn't reach 80,000.
Well, I do think that in the first
now.
3 years, the XFL could possibly see those attendance records increase to maybe near the 20,000 mark on a steady basis. And I think
easily,
I
say that.
Past 1,000 easily.
I think
I'm
that
talking
for
about 35,
but
40.
see,
St. Louis alone.
my thing is that what I believe is that with the XFL, I've spoken so many times about the drive and determination of Mr. Vincent Kennedy McMahon, excuse me, sir. But I also got to talk about the drive and determination of a man by the name of Oliver Luck in being handed something. Basically, McMahon handed him the ball and said, run with it. From what any news we've had, McMahon hasn't had his hands in the product one bit, probably other than to be the financier of the company, of the brand. He's put enough money into this league that it's going to stick around for a while. Now, reports came out. Dave Meltzer, Wrestling Observer, reported that McMahon was poised to lose $350 million this first season. Kevin, you were there. You were on the field with those Warriors. I want to know from you, do you think that Vinnie Mac is going to lose money, or do you think that the XFL is going to turn out to be a very profitable and winning proposition, not only for Vince McMahon, but for the league and for the fans of professional football, most specifically alternative football? What do you think?
Do I think he's going to lose money? Yes. But not for the reasons that you think. Because Seattle's projected right now for their home opener, 30,000. St. Louis, they're projected to have 20,000 plus for their home opener. Houston, there's going to be a rise in attendance this Sunday. And also with MetLife, DC, Tampa Bay, like all of these teams are going to have a increase in attendance, and they're going to sell tickets, they're going to sell jerseys, shirts, and everything. They're going to make back their investment. TV deals with ESPN, ABC, and Fox, the stadiums that you are using, and everything that you've put in to making this league. That is how you're losing money. You will get profit back from tickets and merchandise sales, but you're going to lose money due to the fact of these TV deals. Because look at the production from ABC.
How do you lose money on a TV deal when they pay you to be there, dude? They help produce the show.
Because you have to pay them to put your product on TV.
No, you don't. He's Vincent McMahon. He didn't pay him a damn dime. He got a contract. He's got commercial revenue coming in. It's just the amount of revenue that he's getting that will all be altered through time for the TV contract. He's not paying a damn dime to put the XFL on TV. They want the product. And after this week...
But you have to go to the companies themselves and ask them and pay them to put it out there.
Progressive is sponsoring games. That's a massive national sponsor to have on board. They pay good money for football. You have products there sponsoring this. Look at the you didn't see the commercial breaks, man. They have huge sponsors. Michael, there were sponsors there that shocked the hell out of me that were sponsoring the brand. What do you think?
Well, I think the possibility of losing $350 million over the course of 3 years is a very I think it's a little more of a exaggerated term in a sense, but I think it's probably not that far outside the ballpark in general. And I think Vince McMahon planned for this, and I think that that's one of the things that that this is what Vince does. You know, he's a super intelligent businessman, and he knows where the most of the revenue is going to come from is going to come from the viewership, and it's going to come from the TV deals after that first 3 years. I don't remember the specific terms of the deal between ESPN and ABC, but in Fox and Fox Sports with the XFL. But I know that it's a very friendly contract on both sides that kind of eases off the overall cost for both companies. And that's part of Vince's intelligence in him saying, I'm betting on this product. This product is what I want. You're not going to make a mistake. And by doing it on two major separate networks, there's a potential of a bidding war down the road, or there's a potential for them just both to say, we'll keep this, we'll keep that. Boom, big product, big contracts after the first 3 years. So $350 million isn't really outside of the realm of possibility for him to lose if he's preparing or planning the long-term game of getting that back after the first 3 years. Is the first weekend better and looking better than what probably he projected? I'm sure it is. And I'm sure that it's probably better than what the television networks were projecting as well. So obviously you can get into the subject of, well, maybe this will make money after the first year. I think it's more likely to make money after year 2 or break even after year 2. And year 3, you could make money. This product is not going to lose money for long. I think is the ultimate goal here. And when you look at it from a standpoint of what Vince McMahon does, he's playing the long game. Even 3 years is still short, but he's playing a long game in the sense of when it comes to a startup football league, because everybody wants to make money now. Boom, 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 make money. I want it this second. And it's not always that easy. And I think that Vince took out that extra $250 million to put $750 million behind Alpha Entertainment and the XFL because he knew he needed to prepare for the worst, which the worst in his projection would have been 350, but at the same time still betting on his product to gain that back after 3 years.
Okay, Mark. We know that so these venues are huge. Do you think that moving down the line there might be a team or two that decides to go to a smaller venue?
No, I expect the team probably with the smallest venue at this point to end up going to a bigger one. That's the only thing I it looks great on TV for DC because it's full, but based on what we've already started to see, and I think we'll continue to see, is they've already kind of maxed themselves and have limited that themselves as that team to grow the fan base at the game. They're in a stadium that only holds 20,000 max, and that's probably counting, not just seats, other things. So no, I expect we'll see continually where they will either grow or expand and find not bigger, but just more stadiums like Houston, or because I don't think they'll always go with an NFL-sized stadium. The stadium in Houston, I think, is the perfect size because it's not too big that it looks empty at times, but it's also not too small that they can't continue to grow and hit that 40, 50, 60,000 mark that you will see in the years coming.
Do you agree with him, Michael?
Yeah, I mean, in going bigger is the only thing that they could really do. I don't see Vince investing in a stadium, too many loopholes type of stuff like that. The only other thing that he could possibly do is renovate some old baseball stadiums that are no longer being used that might inject life into something. But overall, I think for the most part, renovations is going to be the biggest thing that we'll see from him. But overall, I think that it will probably end up still striking deals like MetLife and moving on to bigger venues, because like Audi Field is max capacity is 20,000 people. They said 17,000 on the first week. So you're maxing yourself out at 20,000 people for the whole first season. The only thing that's better for DC from here on out is to move to a bigger field, whether it's a college stadium of sorts. And like you said in Houston there, Mark, that's a perfect area. So I think that would be something that they could look into as college stadiums, down the road, because college stadiums, they have a lot of seats, but a lot of them are built to maximize noise level. And you could even get some of the lower, some of the mid-major colleges like Rice University to kind of maximize the overall effect and get, a bigger crowd in there. That, and again, that's just depending on how big Vince wants to go with it.
So
one more thing, Harry. One more thing. The other great thing about college stadiums compared to NFL is there's less of those suite boxes, which gives more opportunity for more regular fans to show up.
And you got
I think that's
seats.
Also a big thing.
And you got bleacher seats. Kevin, you were there. TCEDU. You were there.
Yes, I was.
The crowd noise in that stadium, because that happens to be a college football stadium. You mentioned the oof earlier in the show. Would you agree with Michael's statement that those stadiums would tend to make the crowd noise louder and make the game more exciting, if you would? That's what I would think, because the noise of the crowd is something that draws you into the game. The louder they are, the more intense you feel at home watching it. I mean, watch the Ohio State Buckeyes play and listen to that stadium erupt when the Buckeyes get on a super, a great drive or a great quarter or a great half, what have you. The noise is deafening in-house. Do you think that a move to more of the college-style arenas would be beneficial to the XFL?
Well, Harry, let me put it into perspective. I agree with you. Yes, going to college stadiums would be a good choice. Michael brought up Rice University. Rice University actually is compared to, say, NRG Stadium, has the biggest attendance as a stadium in the Houston metropolitan area. You could, I believe, 50 to 70,000, maybe even more, in that one stadium. But then you talked about the Horseshoe with the Ohio State Buckeyes. Look at these stadiums. Look at College Station, for example, and how they built upon that. LSU, Alabama, Michigan, UCLA. These stadiums, when they're built, they're not built to expand out. They're more pushing in, and these seats are upwards. So the crowd levels are bouncing off everything. Especially like CenturyLink Field, the Legion of Boom, and then you have Kansas City. Those stadiums, they had the highest decibels. Kansas City owns the highest decibel rating on crowd noise in the Guinness World Record book. That's how a stadium should be built.
So do you think that the XFL moving into stadiums designed for college football would be beneficial to the league overall in the long run? Thank you. On that note, we got to pay a bill or two here. We'll be right back on the other side of this.
The Alternative Football News Network. History in the making.
We're third and long here on XFL Now. That was Nick Anthony, the voice you heard, who fumbled the ball at the 1 yard line. I've picked it up, and we're going to run it all the way to the other goal and score here tonight on XFL Now. Right now, guys, man, so much going on. We got Cummins and Goins. Pepper Johnson's been canned. Anthony Johnson was waived. Two Johnsons are out, if you know what I'm saying. And Connor Davis, who is part of team number 9, for those people listening who don't know, there is a team number 9 in the XFL, and that team is where teams will pull players from should they have an injury, should they need to replace a player, as in certain cases. Michael, breaking news today about something in that aspect. What was that?
The Los Angeles Wildcats have their starting quarterback. He didn't play week 1 in Josh Johnson. Week 2, he's questionable with a thigh injury. It appears that they are going to pretty much prepare to not have him this week again, as they called up quarterback Matthew McDade from the Team 9 as well. So they brought up another quarterback. So I'm assuming that Josh Johnson will probably be inactive this week, and we'll have Charles, or you could call me Chad Knopf, as the starter again.
Okay, then. Guys, week 2 is shaping up to be something here. Two teams that I feel are going to be dominant in this new XFL are going to be on ABC at 2 p.m. Saturday. We got New York at D.C. Michael, who's going to take that game home?
The defenders. I think that Matt McGloin needs to play better. He got bailed out significantly from his receivers in the game against Tampa Bay. Defenders' defense is definitely a lot more prepared and a lot better than Tampa Bay's, at least in the first week. I don't think New York, even with that receiving crew, has enough to overcome the defenders' defense.
Let's go over to Mark Angst. Your pick, man. Who's it gonna be? Will it be New York or will it be DC? And remember, they're playing at Audi Field again.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons I'm going to take DC. They seem to feed off that crowd in week 1, and I imagine that crowd's going to be even louder for week 2, especially with this game being kind of a rivalry. You see on social media, they're going back and forth. So it's going to be a great game, really good defenses, but that that DC offense has a lot of weapons, so I'm going to go with them for this Week 2 matchup.
Let's go over to RJ Ciancio. I want to bring RJ in here on this one. Let's get your pick this week for the winners here. New York, DC. Keep it brief.
I'm going to go with the Guardians here simply because I think DC's going to get cocky. I think they are just full of themselves after what they were somehow favored to lose. And honestly, I just don't trust DC. I don't trust Cardell Jones.
You don't trust Cardell Jones. So
if you can keep him in the pocket, there's no way he's going to work.
So you're going. Who are you going with then?
New York Guardians.
Oh, you're going to go with the Guardians here. All right. Kevin, your thoughts before I give mine.
It's going to be DC for me. That defense is stout, but then also on the offense. Cardell Jones, even in the pocket, he is a good pocket passer. He's got Rashad Ross.
That's his strength.
Exactly. He wasn't a runner at Ohio State or even in Oakland. He's got Rashad Ross, and he also has Eli Rogers. I think that offense is going to make a lot of trouble for the New York Guardians.
RJ, you're going to be out on a limb here this week because I also am going to go with DC. That defense impressed the hell out of me. DC is, I'm going to be honest, looking at this point with the quarterback they have, this is the team to beat in the XFL for that championship should they keep the play up and remain injury-free. As much as I love the New York Guardians, I'm going to have to go with DC on Game 1 Saturday. Game 2 Saturday features Tampa Bay at Seattle. This is going to be a massacre at 5 p.m. over on Fox. Kevin, what do you think?
I think you're right, Harry. It is going to be a massacre. But even though this is an 0-1 teams going against each other, I'm sorry. I don't know if I trust Brandon Silvers. Don't get me wrong. He is a good quarterback, but I think Aaron Murray comes back and they win this. I think the Vipers are going to take this one over over Seattle, in my opinion.
Michael?
Well, I think Tampa Bay makes this a game, and I think that this game could come down to a last possession. We could probably see our first 3-point try in this game as well, depending on how the score goes. I'm taking Seattle just because of the running backs and Brandon Silvers from the Week 1 performance. I wouldn't be surprised to see the Vipers win, though.
Mark, give me your thoughts here.
I'm going with Seattle. Their running game, plus they are getting some wide receiver help back in Kason Williams. And, I mean, I'm not sure S.J. Green's going to play, but I have a feeling he probably will because he's the kind of receiver that doesn't need a lot of time to figure out a playbook. He's just that good. Plus, Tampa didn't show a lot. I think it'll be a game. I'm not expecting a blowout at all, but I think Seattle takes it.
Seattle. RJ?
Not a question in my mind. It's the Dragons. I honestly, this would be a closer game if Tampa Bay was playing Team 9.
Oh,
wow!
You know what? Just for that, RJ, I'm going to tell you
Alrighty
what.
Then.
I think the Vipers are going to stick their fangs into Seattle and come back with a vengeance because I think they're out to prove that they are not that team. They will not be that team. I think that they played a much better team than them in Week 1, but these two teams they both have to prove something. And I know the Dragons are there in Seattle, but the Vipers are going to stick their fangs in the Dragons and take them out. That's my opinion on that one. Let's go on to Sunday night because we are now nearing the end of the quarter. Dallas at LA, 3 p.m. on ABC. Kevin, quickly.
I'm taking Dallas on this one. They're getting Landry Jones back as their starter, so this offense is going to look different, especially with the fact that Josh Johnson isn't going to be playing for LA. They're going to have Chad Kanoff and Jalen McClendon. I don't trust that offense for LA. Now, the defense, I think they're going to make a comeback. I think it's going to be a close game, just like Dallas was in with St. Louis, but I think the Renegades pull it out and they get their first win of the season.
Michael?
Dallas, Landry Jones is back, but it's going to be interesting to see if he has the same out-of-sync issues that Philip Nelson had. The Wildcats right now are just a mess. I don't know what's happening with this front office. I don't know if it's Winston Moss. It just too many questionable decisions right now, and until they can mesh, I kind of have to have them lose pretty much every game at this point. So, Dallas.
RJ, keep it quick.
If you ever heard Super Bowl 5 is called the Blunder Bowl, it's going to be like that. I don't trust Landry Jones at all as an offense, and I sure as heck don't trust LA considering they already have had some front office issues. It's not who's better, it's who's less worse. So I think I'm giving Dallas the W, but it's not going to be one that you're going to see in the highlight packages.
Go ahead, Mark. Let me know what you think.
Dallas, completely opposite of what RJ said. I think they put up a lot of points on this struggling, out of sorts LA team. I think takes a couple weeks for this LA team to figure out what they actually are. Dallas in a blowout.
Dallas in a blowout? I'm going to go with the Renegades because Dallas is football, and they may not have come out on top, but they didn't look that bad during the games. That's all I'm saying. I thought they played a pretty good game of football. Then again, I am a Cleveland Browns fan, so hey, that being said, let's move on so we can get the hell out of here so you can get on with your life. The Battlehawks go in to Houston at 6 p.m. on Fox Sports 1? Yeah, Fox Sports 1. Fox Sports 1. That they're being preempted by some like a dog show or something like that. I don't know exactly what it is, but it's something. Anyhow, we got St. Louis and Houston. Michael, quick.
The Battlehawks in another upset. That's all I got. I'm not going to break down anything else because this is the one game that I'm not 100% sure of, and I just decided to make a quick decision. St. Louis in another upset.
RJ, quickly.
I'll tell you what. The Houston Roughnecks are going to go up there, they're going to grab the groceries, and then they're going to grab another win.
The Roughnecks. All right. Kevin, do you agree with RJ? Quickly.
This is my game of the week. I'm actually glad that it is the Sunday night game, and it's on FS1, so the time slot is going to be filled perfectly. This is going to be a close game. I don't think it's going to be a blowout like it was last week against LA. PJ Walker and Jordan Ta'amu are mobile, and they're going to both give the defenses a lot of problems, but I think it's a close game. Granted, I do pick my Roughnecks to win just because that St. Louis offense is still getting in their strides, and PJ Walker and Cam Phillips, Mobley, Nick Holley, and Sammy Coates are on a roll. So
Houston.
I
figured that. I want some audio from the field next week, bro. Let's move over to Mark and see what you got for me, Mark.
St. Louis, and they win on a 3-point extra try that they convert, and that's how the game ends.
Yes, I love it.
And I'm going to be honest with you. I'm going to go with my boy, Linhart Jr., Coach Linhart Jr. of the IDFL. I'm going to go with his hometown team there in St. Louis because that city needs football, and that city needs a winner. Let's look at it overall here. It's like 100% for DC to walk away week 2. Yeah, RJ's out on a limb.
RJ picked New York on that one, yeah.
Yeah, RJ's out on a limb there. We got game number 2. Looks like the Dragons are the favorite here at the Alternative Football News Network, AFNtalk.com, at AFN Talk all over social media. So Tampa, I'm going with Tampa Bay. Kevin's rolling with me. So, what are the odds? Game number 1 on Sunday, we got Dallas walking away. That is 100%, folks. Dallas is going to come out smoking. They're going to prove to you that Renegades don't take no crap. And over on game 2, Sunday night, 6 p.m., a later game, folks, and on Fox Sports 1. Fox Sports 1, don't forget that. And don't forget to get in contact with us on Facebook and Twitter at AFNtalk.com if you got something to say, if you want to be on the show. 310-876-8064. Week number 2 rounds out. And why does Houston always get to play the late game on Sunday night? It looks like Seattle is the favorite here with only Kevin and RJ rolling with Houston there. We'll find out what happens next week. Thursday nights, 7 p.m. Eastern, right here. The Alternative Football News Network. And RJ, yep, they got the groceries, son.
Day of the XFL Football League, baby. This is the answer to the NFL offseason. Holy shit, Houston drops back, and quarterback fires a damn missile down there, son, and he catches that son of a This is NFL-type play right here. XFL, I did not expect this kind of play from the XFL. Holy shit, they got some quarterbacks in this league. Look at that damn catch. He goes up there and says, I got the groceries, son. I'm going to the house.
Rising from the turbulent sea, beneath the darkening skies of their weather-hardened home. Relentless, ruthless, ravenous. Not of mythology, but of muscle and might. Not of folklore, but of football. This is your darkest fantasy in cleats. The Seattle Dragons, breathing fire, February 2020.
The Alternative Football News Network. History in the making. The Alternative Football News Network. History in the making.